Morning folks, it is miserable outside. It is rather hanging a gale and it hasn't stopped raining. Not the most conducive weather, I guess, for going down to the allotment. Time's probably spent better preparing at home, looking through your seeds and seeing what you can plant. Or maybe reading blogs and finding out what you could be doing and learning from my experience or other people's experience for that matter. I thought I'd talk to you a little bit more about the books that have come out of the blog. In particular, the first two are Playing with Plant Pots, Tales from the Allotment, and also Sow, Grow and Eat, From Plot to Kitchen. There is a third, but I'll speak about that in a moment. Let's just move that out of the way. So, as you are aware, over the last, 5-6 years, I've been blogging on horticulturalhobbit.com. I have an allotment plot, 200 square metres. And during my time there, I have learned lots of valuable lessons on how to do things, how not to do things. And other than cataloguing them on the blog, what I chose to do was to write the books. The first one is this one here. This is Playing with Plant Pots, Tales from the Allotment. And this, I think, now is 2.5 years old. The very first book that I wrote. And this came off the back of writing guest blogs. I think it was called World Radio Gardening, and I was introduced to them by the lovely, the fabulous Michael Perry, who is of course Mr. Plant Geek, if you've seen him, if you've ever heard him speak, if you've read anything that he's actually produced. He's a fabulous young man, and it was a pleasure to work with him. And so what I did was to write this, and in this book, in my defence, this is the first book I wrote, and since then I've learnt a lot of lessons which have permeated through those two books. In Playing with Plant Pots, what I wanted to do was to record what I had learned up to and including that point. And in this book you will find lots of bits and pieces. So there is the allotment. It's very, very early stages. At that point, I was covering it with newspaper, cardboard. I even had that that little Wendy house. And what I was doing was to just record what was going on. So there's a plan. This had to be, there's a funny picture I know of the plot under snow. The plot in the height of summer. So we've got gladioli. That is Gladys the butternut squash. And it was proper riot of colour, this allotment at the time. It's also the key image that I use for the Facebook page, which you can go find. If you go onto the Facebook page, you can find Petal Horticultural Hobbit, and that's the header image that I use. So it's something of a very iconic image for me. So going through the plot, it started with a plan, and this plan has changed significantly over the last few years, and that is actually just half of the allotment. It has since expanded. It's twice that size, so 200 square metres, and it has developed, it has changed over time. And initially there was a list made of what I had sown, what I had grown, and this table was created, and I thought I might as well include it. A lot of the seed sowing, I learned that you could make paper pots, that you could save your yogurt pots, for instance, and just cut down on having clutter around the place. And things in here have developed. So look, there's chilies. My gardening adventure started with chilies, with ordinary cayennes that were bought from Wilkinson's of all things. I started sowing and growing, I think it was a May bank holiday, easily, I think I've been teaching now nearly 8 years, so nearly 8 years ago. May bank holiday, I decided to sow some seeds, just through sheer fluke. I knew nothing at that stage. I still know nothing, I'm still growing in my learning. But those were the very first things that I'd sown and grown, and that is, I think that is actually just a normal cayenne, I'm not entirely sure. So there you go, chilies, and those I think were either Argy Limon or something else, and there's purple haze there and cayennes too. So this first book does document the adventures that I had, particularly with sowing things like garlic as well, harvesting them, drying it out, and at the back there are recipes. Now these recipes document much of what is made in Mama F's kitchen, and that means a lot of these recipes are Indian inspired, and document how you can make things that are from the produce that you have on the allotment. So this very first thing is chapatis. I will make a confession right now. I'm not very good at making chapatis. I'm very lucky even I can roll one round or straight just off the bat. Chapati making and rolling does take some practice. And what I decided to do was, in this particular book, write how to make chapatis, right from how to make the dough, how to put the water in, and then thinking about what you have on your allotment. You might have potatoes, you might have radishes, you might have fenugreek, and this recipe here talks about how you can make stuffed chapatis. The book goes on how to make garam masala, and also how to use the produce that you have on the plot. So we've got right here, it says methi palak gobi and aloo. So if you don't know how to garden, you might learn how to read some Punjabi as well. And that's translated to fenugreek, spinach, cauliflower and potatoes. So how you can actually make these and make nutritious, simple to make and fairly tasty dishes. And that was playing with plant plots, health and the allotment. It's simple, it's straightforward, a record of everything that I've learned, everything that I wanted to share. And in writing this book, I really wanted to help bolster the blog. Not everybody's going to have access to the blog. Not everybody's going to be able to immediately read it and take lessons from it. At least with this, you can buy it. You can buy it in both paperback and in a Kindle version. I dare you to take your Kindle or your e-reader to the allotment and to read it whilst you're there. But this, as I say, you can read it, you can write all over it if you wanted to. You're probably going to end up correcting my typos, but in this, we've got the pumpkins, the very first pumpkins that I grew, that I think were Jack, Belittle and Hooligan. Fairly, portion-sized pumpkins. On the other hand, the pumpkin that is sat there, that big orange thing, I think the weightiest that I've ever grown is 6 pounds, 6.5 pounds, and I've been trying ever since to grow one just as big. So those are tomatoes. Yellow tomatoes. I once remember going to Coventry Fruit and Veg Market asking for yellow tomatoes, and I swear I nearly got laughed out of the place. Yellow tomatoes, what are you talking about? The man said, well, I can grow them, so why can't you sell them? And those were yellow stuffer tomatoes, which are really very abundant, very productive, and they start off green like these. Every year so far when I've had tomatoes on the plot, they haven't ripened on the vine, mostly because of inclement weather, and also because I've harvested them before the blight strikes, the dreaded blight. You will find 101, maybe 1,001 solutions, preventative measure to the blight. I tend to harvest my tomatoes before the thing strikes, but there will always be blight alerts whether you want them or not. And again, like the chilies, these were the very first things that I tried to sow and grow many years ago, and I've had them on the plot ever since. What I tend to do is to sow them and grow them outside. I don't tend to put them in a polytunnel. The one year that I did put them in the polytunnel, I got 7-foot triffids that didn't really fruit. They were all frilly and fluffy, but they weren't exactly productive. There's lots of different things in here if you look at. Oh look, chutney recipes. If you wanted to make chutney, how to make preserves as well. There's alus, potatoes in there. I'm trying to find a picture of the bingo. On the front cover of this book is a sunflower. I like sunflowers. I also like my roses and gladioli. They are by far the 3 things that I have on the plot as blooms. Unfortunately, over the last couple of years, I haven't had much success with the sunflowers, probably because not sowing them on time and they get eaten by slugs of all things. So I haven't had many sunflowers, but to me they are iconic. They're little drops of bright sunshine that when you're having a really horrible day, you can go have a look, stand there, take in the view and feel that much calmer and that much happier. Then there are the roses. I kid you not, the number of bouquets that I've come home with, prickly as they are, they're very pretty and they are priceless above all. You might be paying half a kidney to get one of these rose bouquets from a high street retailer who is very posh. But to come home with these is an absolute pleasure. They look beautiful and they smell amazing. Half the allotment has a whole row of roses. It's effectively a rose garden really, and they're just amazing. And when you've been sat at home marking for hours and you're going slightly cross-eyed, you need to go to the allotment and just get a little bit of peace and quiet. Actually, talking of getting to the allotment for peace and quiet, there is actually a whole section on here. Oh look, there's the trug and there's the roses. But it has to be my favourite picture of the roses. There is a section here about how gardening can actually help and support mental health. There you go, bingo, next to strawberries. For me personally, working on the allotment has been absolutely wonderful in terms of improving and maintaining positive mental health. There are, unfortunately, people out there, and there's 1 in 4, I think the statistic is, 1 in 4 of us will experience some form of mental health concern that significantly impacts our functioning and our ability to live our lives on a day-to-day basis. Over the last few years, there's been a significant amount of research that has outlined and evaluated the impact of gardening as a therapeutic intervention on mental health. There were initiatives up until a couple of years ago with Mind, looking at how mental health can be improved by the use of horticulture and social therapeutic horticulture, rather, depending on where you are, it's called different things. And I wanted to put this into the book because it's really been significant for myself personally, as a teacher, as an educator who has an interest in mental health. I wanted to put this in here and make sure people are aware that actions such as sowing a seed, watching it grow, develop, you can draw a lot from it. You can draw a lot of support, a lot of strength. And I know for me, as my journey as a trainee listener and a would-be trainee counsellor, it had a significant impact on how I see myself and how I work. So I had to put that in there for a reason. That is, as I say, Playing with Plant Pots, Tales from the Allotment. The very first book that I wrote, the very first set of evidence, I guess, that grew from the blog that I wanted to share with the world. I am very proud of it. I know it's something that if I wasn't, I wouldn't put my name to it, and I'm glad it's out there. I hope it supports people. A short while later, what I decided to do was to write this. This built on the lessons I had learnt from playing with plant pots, but this had a slightly different focus. That is Scarlet Emperor, an insect. Please don't ask me what that insect is called, whether it's a honeybee or a wasp or I don't know. He was hungry and he decided to have something from the runner beans. So Scarlet Emperor, I remember taking this image and thinking that's an image that I'm going to use. It's an image that I really want to convey. And I had an idea that I wanted to write something that, rather than talked about the growing experiences, talked a little bit more about what to do with the produce that I got from the allotment. Whilst there were recipes and ideas in the back of the yellow one, the Playing with Plant Pots, this particular book conveys my experiences when it came to making jams, jellies, preserves and chutneys. You'd be surprised, if you've seen 1 courgette, you've seen at least 3 courgettes a week, and after a while you get bored. You can't give them away for love nor money, so you do need to do something else with them. You need to be a bit more creative and be able to use them more effectively. And in this particular book, what we also have the blooms again. There is a prefacing section with what you can grow and how you might learn from them. So there's more squashes, there are cabbages. I think that's the 2 out of 3 sisters growing method, and the patty pan there, a very yellow scallopy one. The trug again and roses, they had to feature. They're a fairly staple part of the allotment. But what I've put into this particular book are, as I say, are recipes for jams, jellies, chutneys and preserves. And here we see W, which is a jam made from apples, raspberries and a habanero as well. This is named after a former colleague of mine, and I hate to break it to you, but if you are any part of my universe in any shape or form, you are going to end up in a book, be it a gardening book or a fiction book. You will end up in there somewhere. And there are all sorts of different chutneys in here. We've got Freudian slip, inspired by being a teacher, which is aubergine, tomato, mint chutney. The initials form the name of the Association of Teachers of Psychology, and that was actually one of the very first aubergines that I think I rescued that one. I think that was called Black Prince, and that was one of the very first aubergines that I ever had success with. And we've got Jake's Progress, which had a lot of mint and squash in there. I think we had an abundance that year of squashes. And where's the next one? Which one am I trying to look at? So, and Alex and Anand, again named after a colleague. There's also, I think it's called Linchpin, where gooseberries, there you go, gooseberry and chili jam. You might not think that works, but it did. And it was wonderful to have spiced and tart preserve that goes well on, I think it was white toast that my colleague put it on, but it was really very nice. So the emphasis with this one is what you can do with the stuff that you grow, to a greater extent to this one. And that's why it's called From Plot to Kitchen. I'm very lucky that my allotment's plot isn't very far. It's about 80 metres that way. So it's very important to me that I was able to document that you can grow things, sow things. Oh look, garlic and potatoes. And there's fenugreek as well. I think Mum's got a bunch of it in her hand there. There's lots of things that you can grow, some difficult, some not so, and then you can use them with a bit of ease in your kitchen. People get scared and get quite anxious about not being able to cook things quickly and to have healthy meals. There's challenges. There are challenges you pose yourself and challenges that you don't think you can get over. But the aim, I think, with both of these was to debunk and demyth those challenges and be able to communicate that you can grow your own food. It doesn't have to be hard. There are challenges, but you can learn from them, and you can make sure that you are able to use those lessons to progress in your own way if you wanted to. I don't profess to be an expert. I never will. I don't think I will ever have that mantle of the expert. What I'd rather do is share my experiences and be able to communicate what I've got wrong, what I've learned, and how that might be of use to other people. And writing these 2 books has certainly been a very developmental process that has allowed me to reflect and to be able to think about what I do well, what I can improve on. These are all the buzzwords you learn when you're being a teacher. You have to integrate them somehow, and it's bled into the gardening. So those 2 are the gardening books, and I thought I'd share them a little bit more with you. You might have seen them advertised and pictures and all sorts, and I've never really given an introduction as to what they are or what they do. So hopefully that will inform you a little bit. Those are the 2 current books that I have that are gardening based. The third one is this. This couldn't be less gardening related, and I wanted to share this with you as in conjunction really with what I've already written as a gardener. And this was the first foray into fiction really. And it was a book that I didn't think I'd write, but I did. I firmly agree that stories find you. You don't go looking for stories. And in this book, it's part personal, part sharing again. And inside of here, there are 6 stories that interlink. And it's about grief. Grief is something that not many people will discuss. It becomes private, it isolates you, and it's, as I say, it's not something we talk about, and even talking about it now, I find it very difficult to describe. But when you lose something and you have no idea how your world has changed, it becomes a difficult universe, a challenging universe. And writing Fragments was my opportunity to understand my own experiences of grief, be able to think about what it is that grief exists as, how it impacts on me, and how other people might experience it. And writing Fragments was just as much a journey as these 2 books were here. So it was something, and there's 6 stories in there. You've got people who lose their husbands, husband, a wife, a mum. There's people in this book who lose a pet, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to explore something that is human, it is personal, and it does shape our universes. The 3 books are very important to me, and I feel that they are my contributions to the universe around me, and give a flavour of who I am, having been a gardener who wants to write. And I do hope that when you see these, you think, hang on a minute, these might be useful. I'd like to use these books. They might have some value to me. If you do, that is awesome. And if you feel that is the case, why not drop me a line and let me know how they went for you. You can find, but all 3 of these books are on Amazon, and you can buy them both in Kindle and in paperback. Kindle is easy to transport, and you can take it to the allotment if you want to, whereas I am a bona fide bookworm. I like having a real life 3D book in front of me. And why not pick up a book? You might get transported to a different universe. You might end up, you might find yourself being whisked away in a figurative TARDIS to land on my allotment. So I will leave you with these 3 books, and I hope that you might find an opportunity to go have a look and take a butcher's. They certainly mean a lot to me, and I hope they will mean something to you. So just to repeat, we've got Playing with Plant Pots, Tales from the Allotment, we've got Sow, Grow and Eat, From Plot to Kitchen, and we've got Fragments. 2 gardening books that give you a window into my world, into my allotments, and also Fragments, a slightly different book, and a book that is more concerned with private and personal things that we don't necessarily put into the world in relation to grief. I wish you the very best on the rest of this Tuesday. Have fun, and if it stops raining, why not go out, take a walk, get your hands dirty and smell the roses. I'll see you soon. Bye.